Alright guys, so we went through our top 10 running back rankings for week 17. Now we're going to go into our top 10 wide receiver rankings for week 17. We're going to go ahead and just get right into it. So at number 1 here, the number 1 wide receiver for week 17 is Justin Jefferson. He is taking on the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to make it real simple, guys. Matchup proof. In all seriousness, Justin Jefferson is having a special season and has a legit chance to break the receiving yards record. I anticipate a monster game from him in week 17. The number 2 wide receiver in week 17 is going to be Jamar Chase. He is taking on the Buffalo Bills, man. I love Jamar Chase in week 17. In my favorite matchup of the week, the Bills versus Bengals should be a high-scoring thriller in week 17. I see Jamar being a massive part of the story in this game, so you should fire him up ready to go for week 17. The number 3 wide receiver in week 17 is going to be Stefon Diggs. He is taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. A part of the same matchup as Jamar Chase, Stefon Diggs is in lane for a massive game in week 17. He was a big dud in week 16, but they didn't really need him to be great in that game. This game is going to be a much different story, and a game that could ultimately determine the outcome of who gets the number 1 seed in the AFC. Both of these teams are going to give it their all. I see a massive game for Stefon Diggs in week 17. The number 4 wide receiver in week 17 is going to be CeeDee Lamb. He is taking on the Tennessee Titans, man. So here's the thing. CeeDee Lamb has really taken the leap as a true top 10 wide receiver and borderline top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. CeeDee was absurd in week 16 versus Philadelphia in a major division game and was the wide receiver 1 in fantasy football on the week. As the Cowboys continue to fight for their shot at the division, I expect another big game here for CeeDee Lamb in week 17. The number 5 wide receiver in week 17 is going to be Tyreek Hill. He is taking on the New England Patriots. Tyreek was so close to having a huge game in week 16. He landed a couple of inches short just of the end zone in the Miami versus Green Bay Christmas Day matchup, which kept him under 20 points on the week. As Miami continues to scratch and claw their way to securing that last playoff spot in the AFC, I expect Tyreek Hill to find the end zone in a big game versus New England. By the way, make sure to like the video if you're enjoying it so far and subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. The number 6 wide receiver in week 17 is going to be Davante Adams, who is taking on the San Francisco 49ers. The tale of Davante Adams in 2022 has been a really strange tale. In one of the worst calls of the week, I called Davante Adams the number 1 wide receiver in week 16. He ended up with 3 points. It was a terrible call on my part, but Davante Adams still saw 9 targets in week 16 and was inches away from several big plays that would have changed the outcome of his week in a big positive way. Here's the banking on the Raiders needing to throw the ball to catch up in the game very early and often. Davante here at number 6. The number 7 wide receiver in week 17 is going to be T. Higgins. He is taking on the Buffalo Bills, baby. He's a part of that he's another piece in this same massive matchup here in week 17. The chances that T. Higgins has a big game are really, really high. T was excellent in week 16 with 26 points in fantasy, and he's always capable of a massive game. The Bengals are going to need massive games from both Jamar and T. Higgins here, and I expect it from both of them in week 17. The number 8 wide receiver in week 17 is going to be A.J. Brown, who is taking on the New Orleans Saints here. It's just hard to keep A.J. Brown off the top 10, you guys. Even in a Devontae Smith game, A.J. Brown still had over 100 receiving yards on 8 targets. He's just too important to this offense, and he's just too explosive of a player. If week 16 taught me anything too, it's to not advise my viewers against starting the Eagles players in spite of Gardner Minshew. You won't catch me doing that again anytime soon, as I have A.J. Brown here at wide receiver 8. The wide receiver 9 in week 17 is going to be Jaylen Waddle, who's taking on the New England Patriots. Much like T. Higgins, Jaylen Waddle is one of the other wide receiver 2s in the NFL that can go nuclear at any time. He had a massive long touchdown in week 16, and not to say that it's prescriptive from him, but that's a part of his DNA for sure. Jaylen Waddle is always a massive threat, and in a must-win division game versus New England, I expect Jaylen Waddle to hit another big play or even two. The number 10 wide receiver in week 17 is going to be Keenan Allen, who is taking on the Los Angeles Rams here. Keenan Allen's volume is part of the three inevitables of life: death, taxes, and Keenan Allen having a lot of volume. Keenan Allen is always a security blanket for Justin Herbert. He's going to be a top 10 wide receiver in week 17 as the Los Angeles Chargers look to secure playoff seeding versus the Los Angeles Rams. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football and like the video if you enjoyed it. And if you were looking for the top 10 running backs here in week 17, click on this video right here and click the link in the description to support the channel through Patreon.